Hello and welcome to my week 4 media presentation where I will be discussing my generation, which is Generation Y. So, in this week's lecture, there were 4 different generations that were discussed. My generation is Generation Y, who are people born from 1981 to 2000, but they are also known as millennials. But after listening to the lecture, I can agree with some parts, but others I would have to disagree. So, to start off with, I would agree with what the lecture said that each generation's explanation does not necessarily mean that it'll fit each individual to a T, but it is what is mainly observed in most. For example, for myself, I would agree that um, for work, I would want, you know, in terms of dressing, the attire that I would choose would be more comfortable. I try to keep it more casual, professional, but more towards comfort. Um, I also noticed this when I volunteered because when I volunteered for the elections, the most recent elections in November, I went dressed more casual, but more comfortable. While this older lady, she wore slacks and a blouse that was tucked in, and it was a button-up blouse, and I remember it stood out to me. And even thinking about it right now, comparing those two, she was dressed very professional, and I was more comfortable. I also agree that for me, it is important to have the ability to maintain a personal life. So, for example, in my current job, I am allowed to have every other Friday off, which has helped in that department for me. I would have to disagree with the social aspect because even though I am a social worker, I am an introvert. So I like to really keep to myself if I can, but at the same time, I can easily flick on that switch where I can be social and really maintain a more social life. So I have a coworker who is part of Generation X, and upon listening to the lecture, I automatically thought of him. He fit most of the criterias on the list, so that's why I'm bringing him up. Um, so, for example, when it was mentioned that Generation Xers tend to be more impatient, it definitely fit him. So that's kind of a joke that he has within himself is that he knows and he's aware that he's impatient. He's just always on the go. Doesn't really have patience to wait around for anybody else. But also something that I did notice that fits him perfectly is that he likes to have the freedom to do what he wants and what he feels is best. He has deadlines that he does follow, but he always says, to let him do his thing and things will get done. So he knows how he works better and how to get things done more efficiently for him, even though it may not work for myself or other people, it works for him. And he knows that. He once had a micromanager who wanted to kind of gear him to work in a certain manner. Even though he got his work done, she wanted things to be a little bit more towards how she wanted it. And that caused them to clash a lot because he was not able to be free in how he did his work. So that's where the clashing came from. She wanted to gear him towards one way, and he said, no, I want to do something else. But he also sees his job as just a job. Um, so the loyalty that is explained in the lecture, he does not have that towards the job because he always says how the job does not have loyalty for him at any time. He can be easily replaced. So that's his mindset. As we learned in the lecture, with different generations comes different personalities, traits, and I do think in general people are diverse, even within generations. They're just diverse, and management styles should be adaptable within management. But I do think generations should be managed somewhat differently. I don't think a one size fits all is the solution. As a supervisor, I would assess each individual's abilities and weaknesses to help them work smarter, not harder. Each generation has its strengths and weaknesses, but as a supervisor, I would assist in identifying their strengths so they can use their strengths mainly. I do think that, like I said, a one size fits all management um, is not effective because people are diverse in general. So Mary Parker Foyer would agree that a manager should listen to their workers to assess how they work best. I think people know themselves and they can, express to their management, this is how I work best, and they can kind of work in the middle to see what would be more effective because just applying Frederick W. Taylor's, finding the one best way, back then it did produce efficiency, but today with the union and you know workers having their rights protected, it does produce burnout and unfair treatment. But by working with their staff, management can meet in the middle, if possible, to ensure that work is being done efficiently. This is the end of my presentation, and thank you for listening. I look forward to listening to your presentation as well. Thank you.